What's up, everybody? This is MTGenius, and since my first top 10 video was received with overwhelming praise, I'm going to continue these top 10s with the MTGenius Top 10 Counterspells, suggested by Rob Phillip. But before we get into the list, if you like the top 10s, or any other videos I make, you should definitely subscribe and share this video with all your MTG friends so they too can participate in the discussions. But now, without any further ado, let's get into the list. First up, we have some honorable mentions, and all these cards are non-blue counters. I figure since we're doing top 10 counterspells, blue should get all the spotlight. But as an honorable mention, we have Mana Tithe. The old 1-mana white counterspell comes in clutch in a couple of sideboards. Guttural Response can be used against all these pesky blue counterspells if you're in red or green, and Dash Hopes is a mono black counter, but also has the downside of anyone paying 5 life to have Dash Hopes itself be countered. Counterspells can be weird, and off color, but those are the honorable mentions. Now here's the top 10. Number 10. Negate. With Wizards constantly reprinting Negate, it is always going to be relevant in Standard and even Historic. It also sees plays in some of Magic's older formats as well. Negate is a useful card in most blue decks, and is always going to be around. Number 9. Rewind. Having the ability to counter any spell and then untap lands that you use to cast the counter is insane. I've always been told a 4-mana counterspell is terrible, but a free one is busted. Number 8. Counterspell. The OG itself, Counterspell was originally printed in Alpha way back at the beginning of Magic, and ever since, it struck fear into every player's decision-making when they see an opponent with 2 untapped blue mana. Number 7. Render Silent. If you can afford to slot Render Silent into your blue-white control decks, this card can be very good. Hindering your opponent from casting spells for the rest of the turn can be very devastating in the late game and can buy you enough time to turn the game around. Number 6. Cryptic Command. With 4 options available, Cryptic Command can be useful in many situations. Counter a spell, bounce a permanent, tap your opponent's creatures, or draw a card. Any 2 modes you pick will have a massive impact on the board. Number 5. Mana Drain. For 2 blue mana, you get to counter a spell, and then you get X generic mana on your next turn, where X was the counterspell's CMC. This card not only counters, but allows you to have an explosive next turn, which makes it in some situations nearly as broken as it gets. Number 4. Fierce Guardianship. If you control your commander, this spell is free, and you already know how I feel about free counters. This allows you to tap out and still have a trick up your sleeve. Fierce Guardianship is a relatively new card compared to the previous cards on this list, but it is definitely one you should watch out for in a game of Commander. Number 3. Pact of Negation. This is a free counterspell with a major downside of having to pay 5 mana for it on your next upkeep, but for most combo decks that run this card, you plan on winning the game this turn anyway. It's just an extra layer of protection against combo breakers. Number 2. Force of Negation. Force of Negation is widely considered to be Force of Will's annoying little brother. If it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay its cost, countering a non-creature spell for free and also exiling that spell rather than putting it into the graveyard. Printed in Modern Horizons, this card sees a ton of play in the modern format. Number 1. Force of Will. As you may have predicted, Force of Will is probably by far the best counterspell in Magic if you are playing blue. Force of Will sees a lot of play in Vintage and Legacy, and is the reason why Magic players have to keep their wits about them at all times, even when the opponent is tapped out. With it getting a sweet new reprint in Double Masters, Force of Will is strong and looking better than ever. Thanks for watching this episode of MTGenius Top 10. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you get notifications for every video when they are released. If you have a suggestion for a future Top 10 list, please leave them in the comment section below. This is MTGenius, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.